There we go.
All right, so I always mix my lightener with a scale. Always, always, always. I never eyeball it. You can get away with that a little bit with foil lighteners, but you really can't get away with that with a balayage lightener because your power is in your powder. And so if you're mixing to consistency, not, you know, accurate scale,
You're using grams.
then you could be potentially, learning, growing new things, right?
You're doing grams?
I know, right?
This is new for her. She always uses ounces.
I always use ounces, but
It's always been ounces.
it's always been ounces my entire career. But if you are mixing to consistency as opposed to accuracy, you might actually be diluting the strength of your lightener. So it's very important that you use a scale. So those of you that were paying attention, I mixed equal parts. So it was equal parts Sunlights to developer. I am going to adjust that as we move along. I'm not going to adjust my developer. I'm going to adjust my ratio. Again, if you need more information on that, you can go to that video, Why 50 Volume, and I'll explain that for you in that video.
Are you adding?
No, Olaplex is already on her hair.
Excellent.
So Jay was going to ask me if I was adding Olaplex. So no, because Olaplex is already on her hair. So I let the Olaplex sit in her hair through the process of me cutting her hair. And then, so Olaplex is from her scalp down, and then she has B3 through her ends. So Olaplex is repair rebuilding, and B3 is a really great moisturizer, and they both work simultaneously really well together. I don't like to put them together in my lightener because it deflates the dome. So when we talk about balayage and doming, which again, I know a lot of you guys already understand this because you've followed me for years, but if you don't, you can go to that video I was talking about because I explain it. But with the B3 and the Olaplex, if I put them together in the lightener, it deflates the dome. So I can't get the same kind of lift, and this is what I mean by doming.
I always use a scale for Sunlights, but honestly I don't even know what they recommend ratio is for foil lighteners. Anyways, always eyeball it.
You can totally get away with that for foiling, and if I'm, again, being 100% transparent, I do use a scale for foil lighteners now, but prior to balayage I never did.
Nance says, hey.
Hey. You can totally get away with it with a foil because the foil incubates it, but with balayage, the kaolin or the clay that's in your balayage lightener is your incubator, and so if you add too much developer, you're going to deflate that dome or that incubation, so you won't get the same amount of lift.
Dusty says, hola, sista.
Hola, ¿cómo está? That's about the extent of what I know. Which is terrible because our brother-in-law is, that's his first language. David, you should teach us some Spanish. It's terrible. That's about all I know. It's sad. Very sad.
Heather Murphy says hi.
Hey. How are you, Heather?
When you said kaolin, that's in my my face mask.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm a skincare junkie too, product junkie. So, I just love everything and knowing about the ingredients. So
that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to do something real quick for you that all of you guys that have watched me for a while, just go run, get a drink or something, because I know you've seen me do this a million times, and it's like, she's doing that thing again. But for those of you that haven't, I feel like it's really important to understand the process of what we're going to do on her hair. So I'm just going to really quickly give you a demonstration of doming and why that's important, because it's something that once I start painting her hair, it's kind of hard to see on a video. So if I show you on a black
I will just say, I will reply to your message and say, go back and watch the beginning of the video at this mark.
What was the question?
Well, just if they ask this question, what doming is.
Gotcha.
That's like this every time. Sorry.
Okay.
We're totally on the same page. It's okay.
All right, so I'm going to come over here so that Jared can see this in the background. So what I'm going to demonstrate here on my paddle is this. So I'm using 50 volume developer with Sunlights, but I'm going to use that. I'm going to adjust how I lay it on the hair in a doming effect to be able to get a 10 volume, a 20 volume, a 30 volume, a 40 volume, a 50 volume, all out of the same developer. Know that you can't do that with a foil or a traditional lightener. It's completely different. But with a doming effect, with a kaolin-based clay lightener, you can do this. So if I have a section of the hair that's previously lightened, obviously I wouldn't want to dome at a 50 volume because I might damage her hair. So I might choose to dome somewhere in this area. So what that looks like is if I'm trying to go for more of a 10 volume type of a dome, I'm going to lay the brush flat, and then I'm going to saturate like that. So can you see how you can see the paddle through the lightener? So if you can see the hair through the lightener, you're closer to a 10 volume type of a lift. Even with the 50 volume, that's going to be closer to a 10 volume type of a lift. So if this was a 10, then I'm going to go here. This is a 20. So you'll see that's going to start to gradually build that dome a little bit. So that's a little less transparent. So 10, 20, 30. So if we look at it like this, 10, 20, 30. And it's all in that dome that's on my brush is what I'm doing. So you'll see this start to build a little bit more. So transparent, a little bit more opaque, even more opaque. 10, 20, 30, 40. So it's got a dome on the brush. What I don't want is this. See how that looks like a lot of lightener, but if I go like this, it's flatter. There's not really a dome. Sorry.
Okay.
So even though I have a lot of lightener on my brush, because it's flatter, I'm only going to be able to get like a 20 volume type of a lift like that.
Amber Stockholm McDonald says, I'll have to come back and watch the replay. Time to rinse my girl.
Hey,
Nice to see you.
Amber. All right. So 10, 20, 30, 40. So you see how that's more relieved? Like it's a more of a dome. It's built up. So this is 40 volume. Dome. Okay. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Again, so it's built up. Not necessarily out. Up. So you should be able to see through that lightener at all. So this is how we can manipulate one developer to get 5 different levels of saturation and or lift. Sometimes it's easier to see if I go like that. Can you kind of see it?
Mm-hmm.
So for some of you guys that are watching and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's going to use 50 volume on Steph's hair, especially on some of the hair that's pre-lightened. Yes, I am going to use 50 volume, but some areas I'm only going to saturate like a 10 to 20 or 30, 40. So that's just the manipulation of our saturation. Like this. Again, I did a whole video of that called Why 50 Volume that you guys can search and watch, but hopefully that's helpful. Maybe you can see that way a little bit better. So flat is what we would call skin painting. That's full doming. And you will get different levels of lift with that type of doming with the same developer.
Kaylee says hi and wondering if you're going to hold 4 paddles today.
I mean, if you want me to, I can. Sometimes I like to be extra. Sometimes just because I can, I like to.
You're the Clayton Crane of balayage, of the hair
Only
world.
you and I will understand that reference. Clayton Crane is a comic book artist who's pretty amazing. And Jared and I went to a signing for some of his artwork last month or something like that.
Yep.
And he is known for the way he signed. Well, he's known for his artwork, but also for his signature. And in his signature, is it called rainbow signature? Well, there's several
Infinity
types
rainbow,
of signatures.
yeah.
So he uses multiple markers through the whole signature. So he was holding, I don't know, like 10 markers in one hand as he was writing, which was pretty amazing. And it's funny that Jared says that because I thought the same thing when I was watching it. Oh, that's not good. Okay, so.
Steven Setlin. Hey.
Hey. Let's talk about brushes really quick before we jump into her painting. Because that's a huge part of
Thought we were going in.
Balayage's brush choices. Huh?
Thought we were going in. You're still
No,
talking.
we are. In a second. Because people ask me all the time which brushes I use and why. And there is a rhyme to that reason. So, these are my frame art brushes, which you can get through Staff or Premier Beauty. So Framework carries lots of different brushes. These are the 2 I use the most. They carry more than that, but these are the 2 I use the most with. That's what I grabbed. And then these are the Sunlights brushes. So this is the Bali brush, the original, and this is called the Loader. And let me tell you why and when I would choose each brush.
Don't they have a different name for it now? The Big Mama or something
The
like
Big
that?
Mama, because that's
Yeah.
what Amy Lee called it. All right, so A frame art brush is very soft. Hopefully that translates for you guys that haven't felt one yet, but a frame art brush is very soft. And you see how it's kind of feathered? The tip. And then a Sunlight's brush, a candy shawl brush, is stiff and it has a very clean edge on it. Okay, so I'm going to choose a soft bristle brush if I want basically the same thing. If I want soft application, I'm going to choose a soft brush. One thing that's really important to note though with that is with a softer bristle brush, you're going to sacrifice a couple levels of lift. Sometimes that's fine and okay, so you know, I mean, I'll get more lift with this than I will with that. But sometimes my softness is more my priority. So if I'm going for a super soft kind of sun-kissed look, I might reach for this brush. It's not that you can't achieve that also with your candy shawl or Sunlight's brush, it's just that it's gonna be easier with this. The other time I might choose a softer bristle brush is if the client has super fine hair, because it's gonna help keep me from pushing too much on the lightener and pushing the lightener down into the hair, which is going to create bleeds on fine hair. So if you are that stylist that has a tendency to get bleeds on fine hair, maybe try using a frame art or soft bristle brush, or Color Track has them too as well. Try a soft bristle brush. Just know you won't get quite as much lift with that. So the candy shawl brushes are strong bristle brushes. So think about that. If I'm trying to paint strength, I definitely want to go for a stiff bristle brush. So if I want strength, if I want maximum lift, if I want a lot of pop, I'm going to pick a stiff bristle brush. I'm going to pick a Sunlight's brush. So now we've talked about the difference between soft and a stiff bristle brush. So let's talk about this size. So this candy shell brush was originally designed to be the loader that we loaded our paddle for, but we've also realized that this is a fantastic brush to paint with. So if I'm doing detail work, I'm going to choose this brush, the smaller brush. But if I want to paint, as I said earlier in video 1, if I want to paint big lasagna pieces, I'm going to pick this brush. If you have a tendency to be an over painter, reach for a bigger brush, because it will keep you from painting those tiny little spaces. So a lot of times I'll paint the majority of the hair with a big brush, one of these big brushes, and then paint just around the hairline or the framing with a detail brush. So if you're an over painter, try big brush. And that's the same thing with these two. So this is a little bit more detailed because it's smaller, it's skinnier. If you look at it this way. This I think is called the Power Painter, right? From Framework. And it's exactly that. So if I'm trying to get through something really fast, you know, I don't want to paint 5 million pieces, this is a really great way to do that. Just remember, softer bristle means softer lift. Stronger bristle means stronger lift. More lift, a little less lift, but soft. Big bristle if you're an over painter or you're trying to get done fast. Smaller brush if you want detail. Okay.
Nance says, love you guys. And Donna said, Big Papa is the loader and Little Mama is the... But we got to say it in a southern voice.
like Amy Lee, yeah, that's so true. Yes. Yes, where is Amy Lee? She messaged me and said she keeps missing us live, but she would crack up at that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap my cake for a couple of reasons. One, obviously to keep my cake clean, but it's also going to give me a surface to work off of. So right now I'm using the long wrap because she has long hair. Ooh, I have to do 3 layers.
Oh, you're like, wait, this is long hair, but what? You gotta get the shears back out, baby. I'm so sorry.
That's funny. That's the first time I've ever had to do 3 layers. That's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That's a first.
I should have sent you a photo with a tape measure next to my hair so you
No, I
knew
love it. No, I mean,
what kind of model you're
again, is she not perfect for her hair? Because so many of us as stylists, especially when you first start balayaging, you see somebody come in with that much hair and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be there for, you know, forever. So I want you guys to pay attention time-wise to when I actually start painting her hair versus when we finish. And realize that obviously if we were painting in the salon, I would be talking to you, so it would be even less time than what it's going to take today. So I thought she was a perfect model for that. To be able to demonstrate that, because it's actually, it's not going to be as long as what you think. Okay, so if you missed video 1, one of the things that we talked about was that she wears her hair like this a lot. like in front and open. So I want to make sure that I paint her hair as she wears it. So I want to make sure I hit that. I do want a shadow here. I don't want to paint it too high in her highlights here because that's going to take away from her eyes. So I want her framing to be here to draw her eyes with her highlight, with a shadow here, so that this is our pop. But I don't want this all to be dark because right now it's pretty dark right there. So one of the best ways to do that in a quick fashion is the same way that I section to cut. So I'm going to come up behind her ears and kind of draw a C across her occipital to pull that hair down. And then I'm going to section from the back of her part because she wears her hair primarily in a center part. Same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to tuck these sections away real quick.
We've talked about me wearing it in the front so much. I'm gonna be thinking about that for the rest of my life.
Every time you do a video, you're gonna be like, oh my
Like,
gosh. No, but it looks beautiful on you that way.
Well, thank you, but
But-
I'm always open for suggestions on styling and.
No, it looks
Oh my
beautiful that
goodness.
way. It's just
Everybody has their unique style.
Yes.
There's nothing
and
wrong
it's
with
just
it.
important as a stylist that we notice those things about our clients so that we can
I
do
love
your hair
that.
as you wear it, not how we perceive that you wear it, you know?
I love it. In my 28 years, no one's ever like called me. I love it. Now I
That's
know.
good.
Now I know.
I'm just gonna put that tail out of the way. All right, so why would I paint this hair down if that's not normally how she wears it? So by me kind of pulling that C out, this is just the hair that lays that way. Now once her hair is all the way down, this hair is going to drape over top of that. So however this ends up being is totally fine. The primary focus of this section of hair is how it lays there, not here, because she doesn't wear it that way. She wears it this way. So this needs to be my focus, not painting it here. I like to paint my client's hair how they wear it, because that's what's going to make her think it's more special, right? And then I pay attention. So I'm going to pull this way. So another trick that I learned, obviously from Candy Shaw with Sunlights, is that another great way to not overpaint is to stand your client up. So go ahead and stand up for me. So I'm not going to paint her whole head standing up. I'm just going to stand.
Okay.
But I am going to paint quite a bit of it. When I can reach her body, she's clearly taller than me.
It's the
There you
heels.
go. It's the heels.
How tall are you without the heels?
5'6".
So I'm going to paint a lot of what's below her occipital with her standing up, and the reason for that is because I have found that when I do that, when I stand them up, what's below their occipital, I don't have a tendency to overthink in my brain and overpaint her. If she's standing up, then my perception is what she sees, which is her ends, which in balayage, that's what we're really focusing on. So if she's standing up, that's what I'm visualizing. If she's sitting down, I'm visualizing from the top of her head, and that's not what she's looking at in everything below her occipital, which is when we tend to overpaint. So I'm gonna have her stand right there for me. So I'm going to not paint spaghetti pieces. I'm going to paint big lasagna pieces. So I'm going to grab my Candy Shaw brush because I want it, the loader brush, because I want it to be big. And I want more lift, so that's why I chose the stiffer bristle brush.
I've never been so excited in my life. This anticipation is like, oh my goodness.
That's good.
Yes.
That's very
I'm
good.
so appreciative to be here.
Well, I'm so grateful that you let us paint your hair live.
Of course.
Super fun.
So your husband's a hockey player. How tall is he?
How tall? 5'10". He's a skilled
He's
guy.
5'10"? Really? All right.
I said that live. I hope that's right, Justin, if you see this.
Sorry, we won't quote you on it. It's okay.
Yes, so we've been traveling Europe the last 3 years, and now all these techniques I feel like in 5 years in this industry down the road, I need to go back to Europe and really experience all that you're sharing with me. It sounds amazing.
You're multilingual in your hair now.
Yes.
So do you guys see the slant that I'm creating? So what I'm doing is visually trying to create that slant that I'll connect when I do her front hairline. So I want the shadow in her interior so that then the exterior is what's going to frame her eyes.
I think it's Jenny or Jeannie Miller. Hi, Lacey. Watched the first two
Hey, how
sessions,
are you?
but now I'm leaving for work, so I have to catch this on the replay.
She's a great stylist. She's a lot of fun. I love her spunk. She's got a great spunk.
I'm trying to peek over my mask at what you're doing right now. I'm gonna have to catch the replay.
It'll be fun to
We're
watch.
all catching the replay.
So I'm laying this on fairly thick through the ends.
There you go.
But one of the things that I know you can't really see as much through the video that you would see in a live class, but so I am just coating the outside of her hair. So this layer and this layer. But if you were to open that section up, there's no lightener in the inside. Now I could choose to paint lightener on the inside if I wanted to, but I'm trying to create a softer look. So I want strength on those outer perimeters, but I'm not going to push the lightener all the way through because I want to create softness for her. And because I want what sits up here to be stronger than what this is, so that this is the focus. So this is the bridal party, not the bride.
Sarah says, always learn something new from you. Can you see that?
That's great.
Yes,
that okay,
I
Steph?
can. Thank you.
Okay, so there's one piece.
Okay,
Yes,
so
okay.
now Steph is a client. If she went to another stylist and now is asking for a balayage, is it rude for her to say like, well, Lacey does it like this and then Lacey does it like that? And
Yes, that's rude.
that's what I'm asking. That's what.
I don't know if I'm going to move forward for the rest of my life with anyone because obviously I'm going to be like,
That is
Lacey
so
said.
rude because
No.
every stylist is their own artist. And the way that I do things is going to be different from another stylist, and that doesn't make my way right and their way wrong. So,
And I'm absolutely not the expert, so I tend to keep my mouth shut because I appreciate how, like you said, everyone's unique and
yes.
Only because clients are watching and some, you know,
No.
you never know.
I appreciate that, but yes, if you are a potential client of any stylist, don't ever do that. That is so rude. That's just not nice. I mean, it's okay to say like, this is how my previous stylist did it, but not in a way that you expect your new stylist to do that, because every stylist is their own kind of artist, you know, and if we were all exactly the same, then it wouldn't be very fun.
no, then
Right?
I would just let's see.
So
Okay, then.
it's just like, I mean, so for instance, Sunlight's Balayage as a team, we have so many different balayage educators, and we all paint differently. And so that's one of the things that you know makes it so beautiful and such an art, is that everybody paints differently. And I mean, even educators from different companies, they all paint differently. Like my friend Elise and I are going to an Ashley Norman class. Is find the artist that speaks your language and pull different things from each artist that pertain to you. So you can always find something from each different artist. And as a client, you can find some strength in whatever your stylist is, as long as they listen to you and communicate with you, obviously. But please don't ask your stylist to mimic what a previous stylist did. That's not cool.
No, or I have heard of people bringing in like all these Pinterest, like the Pinterest board. Number one,
So
filters. And
yeah.
number two,
Right. So I mean, let's talk about that. So I mean, when I have a new client coming in, I do ask them to send me some inspiration photos. And so obviously, you know, yeah, I have clients that'll send me my own work, that's awesome. I'm like, I'm gonna like this client because they're sending me my own work. But of course, there are people that bring me, you know, Pinterest photos and whatever. But I just look, I talk to them honestly and openly about that. That, you know, first of all, I mean, I don't say this because honestly, I don't think it really matters. But we all know as stylists that a lot of that stuff is filtered, you know, It doesn't matter to the client, but to us, we know that. But what I always say to be diplomatic about that conversation with the client is, first of all, I want to know what it is that you see in that cut or that color that you love. So let's pull out those elements. Now let's use that as an inspiration to make that work best for you. Because, you know, just because you see that in that beautiful Pinterest photo doesn't mean that's what's best for you, you know?
Right, our face shapes, our eyes. This is what I think when I think of pulling my own if I were to come to you. Number one, like you said, if you take the work off of your stylist page,
Yeah.
you're going to see your stylist for a reason, right? So pick out those parts, and then if you're on Pinterest, our faces are all different. So when you're talking about my eyes or my jawline from the pictures that you looked at previously, that's so exciting to me because that means you're really catering your art to
Trying to
fit
think of
my
those things.
right.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
But I think it's also a great way for us as stylists to set ourselves up for success, not failure, by saying things to our client like, oh yeah, I'm gonna totally mimic that on your hair, because we know that's probably pretty unrealistic. But by saying things, it's just verbiage. I always say, let's use that as inspiration to create something perfect and unique for you. It's just verbiage. But also sometimes I'm like, well, that might be that stylist aesthetic, but it's not mine. So if you came to me, I'm hoping you want my aesthetic, not theirs.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. And your verbiage is something, so this is something I've been doing. I literally take notes when people talk, or I record them when I'm learning something new. So it's like, go back and listen to the way that you articulate the steps during my appointment. I love it.
Okay, so we can see that little like heart shape. So those are those little corners that I pulled out, right? So, I mean, is this the only way I paint long hair? Absolutely not. I know some of you guys are already like, oh my gosh, it's so dark right there. I wish she were zoom her up. We are working off of her natural color that she likes, and it's a lived-in look. If you are looking for something for a client that always wears their hair up, so you want something lighter there, or somebody who doesn't really love their natural color, is completely trying to transform that, I have a million videos on that too. This is for this particular look that we like lived in. We really like her depth. And this is a look where it's really going to showcase her eyes. And if I way over paint too much back here, it's going to distract from her eyes instead of make that pop. So what I'm doing in this background back here is trying to set her up so that her main focus is her eyes, or the bride, right? All right, so now I'm going to drop down part of this crown. Sorry. You got a lot of hair, my friend.
I have a 3-year-old who likes to, she's a stylist herself, she says. So
Oh,
I had to
love
order
it.
some mannequin heads because I'm like, you're tearing my hair out.
I love it. So cute. All right, so in this section, I'm going to go off of the round of her head. And then I'll clean that up here in a second.
I apologize for wearing heeled booties.
Oh, you're fine.
Well,
It's
not
so cute.
happening.
I just am kind of short.
No, I am so sorry. I just didn't even
I'm not
think
short.
about-
I'm vertically challenged.
You're not
Lacey,
even short.
you
This is
are
just a
who you
fact.
are.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine. I love it. One of my clients said one time, she said, you know, God only makes you grow until you're perfect, so you just were perfect faster.
Okay, I'm taking that away. That is it. I love that.
I loved that so much. I was like, that's
So
cute.
good.
Okay, so again, I want to, as I'm painting her hair, I want to really focus on not overpainting. I think a lot of times with balayage, we think like a foiler's mindset, and we think we have to just paint all of that, right? So, what I often do to make sure I don't do that is I step away from the hair. So I step back and look at it like this. Because when I'm standing right on it, I can't really see the light in the dark really well, and so then I'll have a tendency to overpaint. But if I stand all the way back here, then what I can see is that from here down, she looks like she has the same color. So if I put my hand right there, that all looks the same, right? So what that tells me is that she actually needs some depth stretched down in there so that this stands out. So if I really want this to pop, then I need a separation and tonality right there. So I mixed up a demi-permanent that is very close to her natural color. It's a demi-permanent level 7. just a beige. It's like a neutral beige. I'm going to choose a soft brush for this because I want a soft shadow. If I wanted a strong pop of low light, I would choose a strong bristle brush. But because I'm trying to create a soft shadow, I'm going to choose a soft brush. So I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna step back here so I can see where I need that. And you guys will notice that anytime I'm working in the interior of the hair with sectioning, I'm always gonna pick from the ends. The only time I'm gonna section off of the part line or zone 1 is if I'm in her part line. I'm having a brain fart there. If I am working off of her hairline, I will work in zone 1. But in this hair here, this is considered the interior. So since we're working in the interior, I'm only gonna pull from the ends. And the reason for that is that once her hair is dropped down, you're never gonna see this anyways. What you're gonna see is the end. So what the focus of my eyes and coloring her hair needs to be on is what she's gonna see, which is on the ends. So why would I pick from here if what she sees is here? So I'm gonna choose my sectioning based on what she sees, which is right here. So I'm gonna just real softly shadow tone that.
This is all so brilliant. Like, I would never know what's going on, number one, in the back of my head. But hearing you say it out loud, I'm sure that's so valuable to stylists. I can't wait to share on my page, like I said, because when you say overpainting, I see everyone's work, and you work incredibly hard, so it's work smarter, not harder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm literally just skimming this color on, because again, I'm trying to create a shadow, not a true low light, just a shadow. So shadow is soft, right? So this is very soft. I'm just laying it on that top layer. And then I'm gonna lay some Bali wrap right over top of that, just so I don't accidentally lay lightener on top of it. And then now I can come through and paint my pops on the sides. So if she was sitting, I might accidentally paint this lightener up too high, which would take away from what I want to paint in her crown that I want to really pop. So because she's standing, and especially because she has heels on, I can't reach to paint too high. Which is a good thing, because it's going to keep me from painting where I shouldn't be painting. Where my brain tells me that I should paint, but I know as an artist now I shouldn't.
Steak. Can we get you another piece?
No, it's fine, just like that. It'll be fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
Everything's
I'm
fine.
Everything's fine. I'm standing right here. Okay, so I'm going to elevate it just a little bit. I don't want it down because then that's going to create a strong line. I don't want to elevate it all the way out because it's going to create too much softness. So I want it elevated at about a 45. So that'll give me a little bit of strength, a little bit of softness. Again, if she was sitting, I would paint this up too high. So this is one of the reasons why I like to have them stand.
Is that going to be easy to transfer when you go to sit down?
Yeah. I'll show you. Gee, I hope so. Yeah, it'll be fine. So when
That's
I'm
my,
creating,
sorry, that was my guy's brain thinking like, how are you going to do that? Like, I'm thinking like 3 steps ahead right now.
It's
Like,
okay. Hey, it's a great question to ask because you never know, somebody else might be thinking that too. So if dirt kind of turns a little bit, then you guys should see that I'm creating one side of a V. And that is to create that kind of a melty look. So this is the left side of my V, and then I'll do my right side of my V. Okay, you guys see what I mean by big lasagna pieces? This is a big paint. It's not a bunch of little spaghetti paints.
can't have music going because I'll get kicked out.
Oh yeah. I forgot to turn them off. Thanks. You're on it. We do not own the rights to this music.
Does that even work if you put that, do you know?
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
I'm just gonna soften that on the back side. Make sure I don't have any lines. And then I'm gonna drop that. So you can see that's my left side of my V. And
Oh,
what?
too short. You're about an inch too short.
Oh, it's alright. I'm gonna paint the right side of my V. And again, I'm not gonna section it from up here, I'm gonna grab from the ends. Maybe turn just a tiny bit this way. Thank you. Now, one thing I want to point out is that I'm not trying to make this right side of the V exactly match that left side of the V. That would look very unnatural. So I want them to look like they're family members, like siblings maybe, but not identical twins. Sisters, not twins. That's gonna look much more natural. So we don't want it exactly the same as the other side. Just like they belong in the same family. I forgot to share that to the forum,
What's that?
that video. Oops.
Should I try doing it now?
No, I'll do it later. It's okay. No worries. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and paint that back side. Lay it on pretty thick on the outer edges, but I am not pushing the lightener all the way through the interior of that section. It's just on the exterior of that section. Exterior front, exterior back, but not interior. And then I'll flip it, make sure that I don't have any lines on the back.
So I have a question. This would be for new stylists or someone in school or clients. When you say you're not pushing it through, is that how you get the dimension within a balayage?
By not pushing it through the ends. It's one way to get dimension, so it's not the only way to get dimension, but yes, it is definitely one way, because then where I did not push the liner through to the interior, that depth is gonna make what I painted on the exterior pop more. So yes, that's a great question.
So the question is, when she returns for her next balayage in a few months, will you Malibu again? And thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. So I always Malibu in some form before every chemical service. However, I will not do a Malibu crystal gel. Next time, what I'll actually do is send this home with my client and ask her to do this prior to her next appointment. Not hand sanitizer, sorry. There we
And
go.
out.
So this is a great little kit that Malibu put together. So you can send this home with your clients and they can do it themselves for you before they come in their next appointment. So the Malibu Crystal Gel or CPR treatments I only do in the salon. And I do require that once to twice a year of all of my clients, depending on their hair and you know what their water's like and whatever. But all their in-between appointments, they can do that color prepare themselves at home, which saves me time, which then saves them money. So, okay, I'm gonna have you sit down.
Should I move slowly?
You're fine, I got you.
Just get your cape.
Fine. Alright, I'm gonna grab this one. There you go, Jared.
Perfect.
Alright, so far, I have only done 2 sections in the back of her head. Which is great, because when I first started balayaging, I probably would have been at like section 20 by now, I'm sure. Something like that. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Overpainters Anonymous. I was the team captain. For sure. Okay, so that was 34.5. This is my second bowl of lightener. So since it's my second bowl of lightener, I'm gonna do a little bit less developer than powder because that's starting to help build my strength. The more percentage of powder you have, the stronger your lightener will be. Because your power is in your powder, not your developer. Your developer is for speed, your lightener is for your power, your lift. Did you know that? No?
So, when it comes to all things lightener and color, I would say no, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to regurgitate that, but I feel like sitting here today is definitely going to help me.
There you go. So, for those of you guys that are just joining us, this stuff is my Premier Beauty rep. And so don't we all, as stylists, love when our reps get to know our industry and our lingo? I think that's so awesome when they kind of speak our language, right?
Yes.
So I feel like hopefully this will help you to speak our language even more.
Yes, this has been incredible. And at Premier, the Premier way is Team Premier. So every single person in the company has done completely phenomenal. So we have stylists and colorists and former educators, and our reps are just, everyone has different backgrounds. So it's really great for collaborating and really getting to know and understand the industry. So I really appreciate that about them.
Okay, so I'm combing this out before I drop it, because once I drop it, if I try to comb it out, then I might disturb the wrap underneath of it, which is then going to deflate my dome and mess with my lip. So go ahead and comb it out. And then I'm going to kind of flare it out as I drop it, so that it lays a little bit more naturally. Okay, so again, if I'm standing here, I can't see this, but if we step back a little bit, and we can see kind of where her hair kind of like opens. So we have an open here, we have an open here at her crown. And then through her ends, we have an open, an open, an open, an open. So we need to focus on those parts. But also because this is on her hairline, we do need to focus on where her peaks and valleys are through the top. So that's going to determine my sectioning. So whether you paint your light or your dark tone first is going to depend on what's more important to you in that section. So if I'm working on sectioning on one of my uber blondes, then I'm almost always going to paint my light before my shadow, because that's what's more important. On her hair, to me, the shadow tone is just as important as the pop. So just to make sure that I don't overpaint on those clients, a lot of times I'll paint my shadow tone first to make sure I have room for that, and then I'll build my highlight around it. So because I know I want a shadow tone right here, I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. I'm going to tuck it out of my way for now, but I know I want a shadow tone right there. So I'm going to pull it out first so I don't accidentally put lightener on that as I'm working through this section. Okay, so now I can focus on these open pieces down here. And determine where I want to go with that. So I think I want to combine that and that and that. I want this one to be a little smaller because what's going to sit right on top of that is a shadow tone, so I don't want a really big shadow tone sitting right underneath of it.
And knowing what you have underneath of that also, correct?
Right, exactly. So I don't, because there's a shadow tone right there, I don't want to create too big here, because I don't want just a big dark swath at the back of her head. But you guys see how this isn't necessarily even, Steven? That's on purpose. That's going to make it look much more natural. Alright, so with her hair, I could go ahead and not put a shadow tone there at all. But I'm just going to share a tip with you guys that I've learned about myself. Is that because my brain initially works as still sometimes as a foiler, because that's the basis of my training from years ago. So to kind of trick my brain a little bit, I like to remove space so I can't paint it by accident. So the way her color is now, I could just drop a highlight in right here, does not touch that. But I know the way my brain works. So I know that even though I'll say to myself, I'm only gonna put a highlight there, I'll probably accidentally go up too high. So in order to make that impossible for myself, I'm just gonna take that out of the game. So sometimes when I'm working with a client that I want to make sure I maintain their depth and not overpaint, I'll choose a shadow tone that's pretty much exactly their base color, because I'm not trying to shift their base color, I'm just trying to keep myself from overpainting. So if I drop that shadow tone in there, now I can't overpaint that because there's color there. So now it forces me to not paint that too high. So if you tend to be that kind of overpainter, that's something that's really helped me a lot.
Misty says hi, Sista and Stephanie.
Hey, Misty, how's your hair?
Yes, I want photos. She texted me last night and I was gonna demand photos today. Can't wait to see it.
I told Steph that I hadn't done your hair in like 20 years. I think so. I don't think I've done your hair, Misty, since I owned my own salon, which has been almost 20 years. That's a long time.
And Misty, how are you liking the rewind? Misty had a couple of rewind treatments done. So if she wants to drop that in the comments, what we talked about earlier. I'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, she was telling me she loved it. Her hair felt amazing.
Oh, good.
I wonder how people can, if they can hear her because it's on your AirPod.
Well, let's ask. Can you guys hear stuff as she's talking to us since I'm talking to you guys on my AirPods? Can you hear her in the background?
And guess what? That's A-okay. I'm just here for my hair, right?
You know, live videos are not that fun if they're not interactive. So if I had somebody sitting in my chair who was not interactive, that would be so boring. Oh my gosh.
Said yes, I can hear you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Good. All right. Okay, let's be a little extra just because it's fun. So I always set my lightener paddle first, even if I'm not necessarily going to use my lightener first in the section, which I'll show you that in a second. I always set my lightener paddle first because it takes the most working of product is the lightener. You have to kind of work and warm up your clay before you paint with it to get a nice smooth transition in your paint lines. So in this section I'm going to do more of a 3D paint, so I need both my paddles. So I want shadow on the back side, tiny bit of shadow on the front side corner. So Jared can kind of, can you see that, honey?
Mm-hmm.
So front side corner. And then we are going to melt our highlight into that shadow tone a little bit. Come back to our shadow tone. Melt, melt, melt. So this is what we call 3D painting. I'm sure you can tell why, because I'm painting on a three-dimensional surface with more than one tonality. I am letting the lightener touch the color. Don't worry, the lightener is going to win. It will create a little bit of a shift in tonality, but I want that.
Sarah Bontrager says hi.
Oh, hey, Sarah. How are you? Your work has been so beautiful. Well, I always think your work's beautiful, but...
And don't be a helper, Stephanie.
Oh, yeah. So, don't lean into me, kind of like resist against me.
I'm only laughing because you're first time.
Oh, what am I doing? Sorry.
So, you were just gently kind of leaning into me.
It's something that usually Lacey talks about before, whenever she has a new client, one of those. And
Yeah.
It's one of those you get used to it kind of thing.
Just kind of resist against me. Don't like pull like away from me, but just kind of resist
Don't
against me.
let you pull up.
Don't.
What did you
Don't
call
let
that?
go
Don't
back.
be a helper.
Don't be a helper.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because I need this hair to be really like taut and tight so that I can paint right on the top of that surface. If you lean into me, then the hair kind of sags, and then I can't get as clean of a paint.
Thank you for mentioning something in that, just let me.
It was just something so minor that I saw that I know Lacey usually talks about, and it's like, oh yeah, she doesn't know.
I missed that part in all of our conversations today, Steph. Don't lean into me. We talked about so many other important things.
I can share that on my personal page with all of my friends. If anyone is getting this done, don't be a helper.
Don't be a helper.
I have a lot of guys that do that. They're always like leaning one way or the other, and like just stay right there, just right there.
Yeah, my quarantine haircut's what I'm talking about. My partner turned his head, and I was wondering if he did that in the chair, but I took out a chunk behind his ear.
No.
He had no idea, and I just did. My dad and I were crying, laughing. We're like, oh,
no.
can we tell him?
Kind of do one of those combs, and then you start combing it again, like, oh.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Whoops! That's a whoop. Well, shouldn't have turned the chair. For his head, whatever he did, I don't know.
All right, so there's a 3D section there. This is a drop melt in the center with a shadow tone underneath of that and a slant on either side highlight there. So we have a slant, we have a shadow tone, we have a melt, and then we also have a 3D paint. All right, so I'm gonna come over here and do the same thing, but again, I'm not trying to make them matchy-matchy. I'm trying to make them look like they belong in the same family, but they're not identical twins.
So you touched a little bit right there.
Yeah, so those of you guys that were watching the video, there was a little bit of lightener on my comb, and so I touched it right there. So I immediately kind of wiped it, which you guys saw me do. Don't do that with a wet towel, because if you do that with a wet towel, the water will kind of spread the lightener. With a clay-based lightener, if it's real thin, it'll just dry out. So because I just kind of wiped it, it dried it out, so nothing will happen. It's just powder right now. So if that happens, don't panic, and two, don't grab water, because it'll just spread it. Just wipe it with your hand, because it'll dry out, and then nothing will happen. Okay, so now that I've got my towels, I want shadow here. I want a little shadow there. And then a little bit of pop, but not too much. Because I want my pops around her face frame and through the ends. Work down with my shadow again. And then I'm done with my shadow tone, so I can drop that towel. And then I'm going to melt with the lightener and the color touch, so you create another tonality. Melt them together a little bit. And then some strength through the ends. So a lot of times when I'm working, I will do what you just saw me do. I'll drop it. And that's just because I'm looking for my visual connection here. So I'm looking for kind of that V. So where I want this to get a little whiter, how that skinny and then it goes white. So this is what outside, exterior, and the inside, or the back side, exterior, but not on the interior. Is that mine or yours?
What was yours? Misfits.
Oh.
I just panicked. I was like, is that my phone?
No,
We're all
that was
good,
me.
everybody.
That was my fault. Sorry.
Angie, you are live right now. Not catching the replay.
Angie Johnson?
Yeah.
Hey, Angie. Angie also has a fantastic Facebook page. Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, is it called Be Inspired? Be Inspired Blonding? She has a lot of great blonding tips, not just balayage, but also she has a very unique way that she foils that I think is so cool. And then Angie also is one of our sunlights educators, so she has lots of different techniques that she shares for blonding on her page. And of course, she's also one of our feature stylists on the Hair Forum with Lacey Worley. Because she's amazing.
Jill Logan Tover says, I could watch you all day.
Well, I feel the same way about your work, and especially, I love your work period, but I love your haircuts. They're so amazing. Okay, so I did her entire back head with the exception of that little part there in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, right? So it'll be 4 sections with as long as her hair is. So I think that's doing pretty good, right?
Yes. I'll
Yes.
answer for you.
I will say, I was gonna say, if you're talking to me, yes, because I have been in the chair for an exceptionally long time in the past, so.
Yeah, so you get it.
So
Oh,
a question, if she had her hair curly and wore it curly, would you paint it in the natural state?
So if she wore her hair curly more than she wore it smooth, yes.
You
If
would
I
paint
have
it
a
curly.
textured client who also wears their hair smooth, then I paint it smooth. So what I'm trying to do here, and I think this is one of the most over-painted spots on a client's head, to be perfectly honest with you. And again, I used to do the same thing, because I'd be like, I have to paint that, right? Sometimes I will honestly just completely leave it alone. I know that I want that dark, because if I leave that dark, that makes that pop, which is also in turn gonna make what's around her face pop. What I'm trying to decide is if I want to paint this, and I'm feeling like I don't, because I want this to really stand out and that to stand out. And so the best way to do that is to leave this alone. So I know this is going to be really hard for so many of you because it was for me in the beginning as well, and I'm not going to touch it. If it makes you feel better, just take a shadow tone that's the same as their natural color and just brush it. If you feel like you need to touch it, just do that. I literally used to do
I love
that.
it. You need to touch it.
Yeah, I literally used to do that. I was like, okay, I feel like I have to touch it, so I'm just going to touch it with exactly their natural color. Or, you know, touch it with some conditioner or something. I don't care. Whatever you have to do to make yourself walk away from it. Step away.
Marine Joy, I love your teaching, your kindness, and your joyful energy.
Oh, thanks. Sometimes I hate that I sound like I'm 12, but I guess I should embrace it. Right? When I picked up our Starbucks yesterday, honey, I went, through the drive-thru and said I have a pickup order for, Lacey Worley. And the lady, who sounded like she was probably in her 40s or older. Oh my gosh, I just said that she was a lot older than me, and I just thought because 40 was older than 40. Wow. She was a lot older than me, so probably like 60. I don't know, that's so funny. Wow. The older you get, the younger everybody seems,
Everybody, as Lacey turned 40 this past year.
Anywho, so I said I have an online order for Lacey Worley, and she goes, "Okay, honey, go ahead and pull ahead." I know I sound like I'm 12.
See, when you say that, I guess I don't know.
Well, that's good.
I don't register.
But then when I took my order, and then I have my mask on, so I don't know, whatever. But she goes, "Okay, have a good day, sweetheart." It's the voice, I know.
But seriously, when I followed her on Instagram, I thought she was in her late 20s, early 30s.
Aw, you're
So
sweet.
when you say she was a lot older than me, embrace it and feel that way. Age is just a number, right? That's how you feel. I love that.
Christian says, my foil brain has a very hard time absorbing that.
Yeah, the back part. I get it, girl. Okay, so let's talk about placement for the front, because everything I do, there's a reason for it. I don't just haphazardly pick up sections. So she has, obviously if you guys go to her Instagram page, you'll see that she has a beautiful face, period. But she also has really gorgeous eyes, and she has really great cheekbones. So if I want to really draw attention to a facial feature, then I want to almost create like a pointer, and the best way to do that is with your shadow and light. So anywhere where you place a shadow, that's going to recede whatever you're trying to diminish, or it's also going to set a stage for your highlight. So anywhere that you put a highlight, it's going to draw the attention to or draw the eye. So I really want to draw attention to her eyes. So if I want to do that, then I want most of my lightness to be in this area. And I want shadow toning to be more here, so that what sits on top of that pops. So that'll be my stage for that, to make that pop, so that the eye is drawn up.
I'm so excited for this. It's been a long time since I've been higher, like I've been missing that in my life, that pop that you're talking about, so I can't wait to see how this comes to
Shirley
life.
Foster says, Lacey, you're so inspirational, and my opinion's the best, in my opinion, the best educator out there.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thanks. Sometimes we need to hear nice things like that.
I just almost started crying, I think, when she was flattering me. I mean, that watery eyes, I'm like, it's weird, you don't always, like, I don't know.
Thanks.
That was
Sometimes
really
we all need to hear just nice things like that, you know?
Be kind. Kindness goes a long way, right?
Thanks. That was very
And
sweet.
Kristen says, love your haircut, adorbs.
Aw, thank you. Jared cut it for me. Okay, so this is a shadow tone right here. This, again, is going to make that stand out, and what I put on top of that stand out. And then through her length, I'm going to add a little bit of a pop. But I'm not going to paint this quite as strong as what I'm going to paint in the front. So my saturation in this section is a little less than what I'm going to paint in that section right in front of it. And that's because I want that to look more important than this. This is still important, but that's more important.
And this is the Premier and Me, but do these paddles come with the Sunlight kit?
So with Sunlight's Folly box, you can order a Sunlight's Folly box. So there's two boxes. There's the OG, Sunlight's Folly box original, that comes with the paddle.
It's like a 1.0, 2.0.
Yeah, and there's a Folly box 2.0, and this is so terrible, but
It's been a while.
I
It's
don't
okay.
remember if it comes in the second one. That's
Jameson, where are
No,
you?
I should know. We distribute it in Illinois.
It definitely comes in box one. Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed right now because I obviously am a Sunlights educator. But somebody who's on my Sunlights team, can you answer that? Is there a paddle in 2.0? That's mortifying. Of course, because either Candy or Jameson are probably going to watch this and they'll be like, seriously, Lacey?
I should have asked.
Really,
I'm not a
Lacey?
stylist. I don't need to know what's included in this.
No, that's so funny.
And I
That's
should
a
have
great
known.
question.
I
It's
should
just
have
a
known.
question that Lacey doesn't know. It's okay.
That's so funny. Hey, the best thing is to admit humility. And for some stupid reason, I can't remember. I
Andrew,
guess that tells you it's been too long since I've taught.
Andrew Dunn gave you a couple hearts. Hello, Andrew. And Sarah
Andrew?
asked if it's possible to color correct with balayage.
Absolutely. I color correct with balayage quite often, actually, because it's so soft. Andrew Dune, if you're still there, can you help me out with something? So the shadow tone that I'm using on Steph's hair is Wella Color Touch 7/9/7. I didn't explain the tonality to that because I think their stroke 7s are pretty hard to explain. So the stroke 9 is a cinder. Stroke 7, I think they call it velvet, right? So Andrew Dunn is with Wella. So is that, I've always said it can I feel like sometimes it can go warm, sometimes it can go cool. It's like a beautiful beige tonality, but when other stylists ask me to be able to transfer it to their own color line, and they're like, okay, so is that ash, is that cool, is that whatever, and I'm like, I have no idea. Stroke 7, anything stroke 7 in Wella is its own unicorn color, so.
Balayage Box 2.0 does not include the paddle.
Oh, thank you. Who saved my butt on that one?
That was Sarah.
Thank you. Oh
I
gosh,
feel
it's
like
more
And,
embarrassing because she's our student. What's that?
I'm so sorry. I should know that too. Sorry.
It's a
Chris.
comical moment.
Christian says, I know I was so looking forward to when you guys were headed to Boston to take a class, but COVID got in the way. One day in the future for
know.
certain.
I know, I was so sad about all of our classes. I had to cancel everything for the year. And of course, every time it would pop up in my calendar that I was supposed to be somewhere, it just made me even more sad.
And I'm gonna butcher this name, but Fabiana says, do you
Yeah.
have a curly balayage demonstration on your pro page? Thank you.
I do not, only because we have an educator with Sunlights who just completely masters that. It's definitely her specialty. So her name is Lisa Colhoun, Colhoun. So she has done some curly hair demos on the pro page, so you can search them there. And then you can also reach out to her through PM, or also she has a page on Facebook. If you struggle with finding her though, also you can go to our Sunlights group page, because she's in there as one of the educators. But if you have a hard time finding or connecting with her, just let me know and I'll send her your way. But that's what she specializes in. But if you go to the pro page, you can just search Lisa Colhoun. She has a couple videos up there that are specifically to curly hair balayage.
Dennis is watching the Philippines. Sonia's watching from Louisiana. And greetings from Croatia.
Wow.
And
That's cool.
which use for dark shade? So what
So
did you use for the dark
My
lower?
shadow tone is Wella Color Touch 7/97. So it's basically a cinder velvet. It's just kind of like, it's almost like a mushroom tonality-ish. I don't like to call it ash because on her I would have thought that was a little bit muddled, but I also don't want to be warm. So it's like that perfect kind of pretty beige neutral.
I'm loving the sounds of this.
And this is why I do men's hair and not women's, because you talk about mushroom and ash and
I'm like
and
so excited about that right now. I feel
Sorry,
like
I
it's
just-
perfect.
I took the phone from Jared so I could show you guys something real quick. Okay, so right now, I know it's hard for him to see this one to point it out. So I have only painted on the top side of that ridge, but I have not painted on the front side of that ridge. So the reason I didn't paint on the front side of that ridge is because I want that shadow right around her, well, here you can't see me do that, but right around her face. So that, here, hold this. Come up here, real quick. This side. Okay, so I want this to be dark here, so that what sits on top of it draws attention to her eye. So if I painted light here, then it's gonna widen her face. But by me keeping the light on the top side, it's gonna draw the eye up. So if you have somebody that has a really long, narrow face, then you might wanna put light here to draw them out. But with her, I'm gonna draw the eye to her eyes. So that's why I'm only on the top side, not on the front side, it's just here. When I get to her many pieces here, it'll be both front and top.
Question: when do you choose to do surface painting versus penetration all the way through?
It depends on whether I'm going for a really soft, kind of natural lived-in look, or if I want strong contrast. If I want a really strong contrast, I'm going to paint all the way through. Or if I'm going for more like a traditional like ombre look, where it's like solid blonde through the ends, then I'll paint it all the way through. But if I'm going for softness, then I'm going to leave that dimension on the interior. So I'm going to look for the arch of her eyebrow, and section right above that. So her arch is right here. I'm going to draw up above it. Again, and draw the eye up.
If we have any local eyebrow people, don't cringe at my eyebrows. Just send me a message with your information.
Okay, so again, I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to look at it. I'm not going to look at it from here because this is not what she's going to see, because this hair is going to lay over top of it. What she's going to see is here. So I'm going to section from here. So I want my shadow to be there, my pop to be there. If we section off of zone 1, we're going to always overpaint. The only time I'll ever section off of zone 1 is if I'm on her part line. Everywhere else I'm going to section through zone 2 or zone 3. Because I'm trying to paint what she sees, not what I see.
Hi, watching from New Zealand. Love your work. Do you have any educators in New Zealand?
That's a great question. You know what? I will get back to you on that. I'll reach out to our Sunlights team and find that out for you, and then I will put that in the comments for you.
Does Spitty teach from there?
No, Spitty's from there, but no, he doesn't teach from there. But we might have somebody in your area. I feel like we do, but I don't wanna tell you yes and be wrong. So I will find that out for you, and then I will put it in the comments for you. Or I can also private message you. Either way.
We'll be in touch.
I will find that out.
These diagrams up here are making more sense now.
Oh, good.
I've been staring at them since I got here, and now I'm starting to really.
Well, in a lot of my videos, I go greatly in depth in those. That wasn't my focus today. So if you are really interested in how that works, you can always go back and watch one of my videos that talks about it. But oh my gosh, if I like spell out those diagrams every video, that can take a solid hour and a half in itself. But they're good little reminders.
Yeah, they're perfect to be up there while you're talking. It's so good.
We've done it a couple times.
Yeah. I used to explain it in every video, but now I feel like enough people have been watching me long enough that hopefully they just need that as a reminder, not really as a from the beginning either.
It's one of those aha moments, right? It's like, oh, that's
Yes,
right.
I was looking at them. Okay.
Now it makes sense.
So Judy, I want you to come in really close real quick. And I want to point out that hopefully you can see this on the camera. Can you see how you can kind of see her hair through that?
Mm-hmm.
That's on purpose. So I want lift here, but I don't want this to be as bright as what that's going to be. So I'm gradually building that. If it was all the same level of lightness throughout her head, it wouldn't look as special.
Just that extra inch there at the end, get you.
Okay, so some of my clients I might choose to paint on this interior ridge, but again, with her, I'm not going to because I want to create that sea of a shadow to make this pop here, this money piece, to really frame out her eyes. So I'm not going to paint on this interior ridge because I want to use that shadow to make that and what I'm going to paint on top really stand out. So I'm going to paint just on this top side, but not here.
Said, thanks for the reply. You should come to Croatia.
I have never been to Croatia. I think Croatia would be pretty amazing. I love to go to new places. Once we're all allowed to travel again, right?
Yes, deep sigh.
Yes, deep sigh.
Dreaming of the days.
Okay, so this is not full saturation where I'm at right now. And then I'm going to build my saturation as I work down her hair shaft.
Totally in your personal space, sorry.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Didn't even
Sorry.
notice. It's okay.
I didn't know if you were talking to Lacey because I do not mind. That is what I'm here for.
Dennis asks, can I get some tips on how to prevent breakage when using bleach when I do balayage?
So that could be a lot of variances, honestly. Some of that could be in your mixing. So if you overmix with developer, then that can cause some breakage because a lot of times we'll think that we need to leave it, like it's not getting light enough yet, so we'll leave it on longer. So you actually leave it on longer than what you need to get the look that you think you're going to need, but because you diluted it with developer, you're never going to get there. So you leave it on too long, you're still stuck in breakage orange. If that makes any kind of sense at all. I'm sure it does.
I just processed that. It took me a minute.
Yeah.
But
right. So that can be part of it. Another big part of it though can be your saturation. If you oversaturate, so in an area that really only needs that kind of a saturation where you can kind of see the hair through it, if you go through and oversaturate to like say a type of a 50 kind of a dome, then you can definitely create breakage. So it's all about knowing how to saturate when and where. That's really, really important. So be mindful to, one, make sure that you're measuring every time you mix your lightener. That's really important. And then also be mindful of your saturation. Your saturation should vary throughout the head. Just like with foils, how we'll maybe start in the back with like a 10 volume and then, work up to a 20 or 30. It's the same kind of thing with balayage, except that we're still using the same developer. We're just varying our doming or our saturation to accommodate for that.
Jen Lasley says Lily is ready to be your next model.
Aw.
Next time.
Hey Jen, how
So you
are
look
you?
gorgeous.
She would be a great model. She's got great hair. And then obviously there's, you can always add things like, Olaplex and B3 to your lightener to help buffer that as well. Was that Dennis that asked, I think?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was me concentrating on my section and then coming back to that thought.
You're so good at this. It's not like you get distracted and you just.
Well, I do. I'm just usually really good at coming back to it at some point. I do get distracted actually kind of easily.
Which she reminds me that I need to answer the question that was asked.
Yeah, because Jared gets distracted and goes
You get
off on
distracted,
some
you get off on
different
something.
road.
But what was
Oh,
the?
dear, we can relate on that level, honestly. Sometimes I have to shut it down. I adore my manager at Premiere, and then I'm like, okay, bye. Like, sometimes I just have to let her go. I'm like, what was I even calling you for?
What was the question asked?
So you'll look right. Are we talking to me here?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so obviously we can tell that she had a foil. She had a good foil, so I'm not hating on the person that foiled her hair. She had a good foil. This was a very good foil, but she did have a foil. So the biggest difference between a foil and a balayage is that a foil definitely is going to grow out like where you can see it, whereas a balayage is going to grow out as a blur. This is not because she had a bad foil. It's because she just had a foil. That's
I
just
love
part
how
of
you
having
keep
a foil.
touching on that. I don't think my stylist is going to see this.
Well,
But
I mean, that's important, I mean, you'll never hear me stylish shame anybody that does that has their own insecurity, seriously. But your stylist did do a really good job. That's just the difference between foil and balayage. So I need to kind of soften that a little bit. So as I go through and paint this, I'm going to focus on kind of breaking up those lines a little bit. So
We are at Paul Mitchell, Atlanta, watching you, and thank you for your amazing
Awesome.
education.
well, thank you. All right, so I'm going to dust out that foil line with my shadow tone, and then I'll come in and put a little skin paint of lightener through the ends.
So we're in Croatia, New Zealand, Atlanta today, all over the U.S. and world.
No pressure.
No pressure.
All right, so I'm gonna, let's see right there, I'm just gonna dust that out. I'm not painting a big swath of a shadow tone right on her part line.
Seattle.
Please don't do that because your client might not love you.
or you have clients like me. I'm like the easiest client, honestly.
Which I love, but some people, if you're not careful and you paint a big swath of shadow tone right there on their part line, they are gonna hate you for the rest of your life and possibly slash your tires on their way out the door. So.
Oh my gosh. I would have hoped not. That's what hats are for, and then also that much time to worry about being
I mean,
someone.
Every stylist though knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Everyone's like, oh yeah.
It's that one client that we never say low light, we only say shadow tone. Because if we say low light, they're like, oh my gosh.
See, and I just think there's beauty in all of the tones, right? So.
I love that, yes.
Christopher is in Niagara Falls.
What? I love Niagara Falls.
Ashley, when are you doing a class in Michigan?
Well, I was supposed to before all this happened. I actually had one booked, which was so awesome. Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I wish I had an answer because it kind of just depends on when all of this kind of goes away. As soon as possible, I'll tell you that. I really miss my students so much, and I miss teaching, and I miss traveling. I was looking through my my photos on my phone one day looking for a picture of something, and anyways, as I was looking through my photos, I was like, yeah, and I used to have a pretty awesome life.
I wrote in your card, like, I can't wait to hear about your life and all of your stories because.
Oh gosh, it's like, remember when we used to do stuff? Remember when we used to go places? I mean, now it's like, today I went to the living room.
Yeah. Seriously. And then I didn't think 3-year-olds would notice my daughter is like Can we go to there's the Radisson downtown Kalamazoo.
Uh-huh.
Can we go to the pool in the pool restaurant? And it's just like, oh, she does notice that we are not going anywhere.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Do you remember what we did in Kalamazoo? Last time we were there?
I don't. What did we do?
That was our Comic-Con we went to.
Oh, that's right.
With Julian.
With Julian. With the kiddos. All the kiddos.
Hi from Vermont, and then which Olaplex do you have in her hair while painting, 1 or 2? And thank you for wonderful education.
Thank you. So she has number 1 in her hair. So she has number 1 Olaplex all the way throughout her hair. She has B3 through her mids and ends for moisture, so like here down. And then I will use Olaplex number 2 after I shampoo everything out and through her glazing process. So Olaplex 1 everywhere, B3 through the ends, and then Olaplex number 2 everywhere after we shampoo. So again, I'm only on her top side right now. And that is because I'm really trying to build the suspense for that front piece.
Ooh, I feel this suspense building.
Which is what, did I already say that when I stood up, that this is like the most suspenseful, highly anticipated your day of my life?
You made me nervous.
Steph, it's that whole under promise and over
deliver.
Yeah.
That is what I always say. If you are local to Indiana, Michigan, and I service you, I will always under promise and hopefully blow you away. But
And over deliver, right?
yes, exceed expectations. That is
Steph,
the way
I
to
am
go.
so basic as a balayage.
I seriously can't. I
am-
said I might cry when I've got
I
tears
am
of joy. Like
so basic.
Oh my
Don't
gosh.
expect too much.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'll
It's like
try
when you-
not to be embarrassed at the reveal.
Oh my goodness. When I scroll through your Instagram, I'm like, okay, for inspiration, I don't care. I like it. I'll take it all.
Any one of these will do.
Aw,
Yes.
Thank you.
Robert, slay that freaking blend, Lacey.
Aw.
Fist bump.
Thanks. Robert who?
Frank Maresh.
That's so funny. Hey Robert, how are you? I miss chatting with you over quarantine through our videos.
Woohoo, we have another Vermont in the house. Hello, Vermonter.
Vermont is another one of my bucket list places that I've always wanted to go to. Don't laugh at me, guys, because I know that I just talked about how I like felt kind of old and I don't want to feel old. And then I'm going to tell you, you're gonna be like, yeah, she's so old, but I can't wait to go to Vermont Country Store. Like, I know that's kind of like probably not the youngest thing I could ever say, but I really want to go to the Vermont Country Store. Don't you, Jared?
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to go.
I don't know why I've always wanted to go there, but I do.
What if it's not in Vermont?
I don't know. It would blow my mind.
It's gotta be in Vermont, right?
There's a couple people on, right? Maybe they can answer that.
I mean, my mom used to get that catalog, and it just had everything.
Well, Ellen
Like,
said
if
it's
it
awesome.
doesn't- If
So,
it doesn't exist there, then they don't make it.
so bowl number 3.
Yes, bowl number 3. And so I'm gonna do again a little bit more lightener than developer. A little more powder than developer. To bring my strength up.
Ellen said it is awesome there. So,
Oh, good. Oh,
what are you looking for?
I need a keeper.
I got one. I'm not helping out.
So when I'm teaching, I have amazing people that help me when I'm teaching. And so I always have a couple assistants, and one of the assistants, their job is literally to just do that. Every time I go, where is my...
This is like, so my dearest friend is a dentist, and that's what it's the same concept probably. I worked in her office for a year, and it's literally just like keeping the tools where they need
I'm
to
so
be.
bad about that. I'm like, I mean, it's my fault. It's not the person who's helping me. I'm like chronic, and I just set stuff down in the most random places. Like,
I can relate on a different level, only like my cell phone. I never know where it is.
Oh my gosh, I never know where my cell phone is.
Never.
Thank goodness for that whole feature on the Apple Watch that you can
Yes.
page your
Find my
cell
phone.
phone.
Yes.
I use that a couple times a week at least.
And then I have those things for the keys. Mine wore out, but I can't remember what the
The
brand
tiles?
was. Yes, the tiles.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I could choose to either paint this way, or, which is going to give me strength, a lot of, like a strong contrast, or I can choose to hold it up and back and paint it on both sides, which is going to give me a more blended zone 1, so it'll be softer there. So what I want to do is a little more blended, so that it grows out really well.
Kelly, do you put bleach over bleach with Olaplex? What number developer? Regular bleach? Very nice job.
Thank you. So overlapping with lightener. So you can get away with a little bit of that with Olaplex, but you still have to kind of play by the normal rules of lightener. So you want to try not to overlap when possible. Definitely, especially with a foil, because it's going to incubate that and potentially cause even more damage. Yes, Olaplex can help, but we still have to, use our good judgment and making sure that we are as mindful as possible to not overlap. Now with balayage lighteners, true balayage lighteners, I'm not talking about using a foil lightener, true balayage, but a true balayage lightener are a little more buffered. So although you still want to be mindful of overlapping, you can get away with that a little bit more, and definitely especially with Olaplex. Here where I'm working through zone 2 and zone 3, where she has previously lightened hair, I'll just change the way I saturate. So it would be, if we were translating that to a traditional lightener with foil, it would be like if I was dropping down in developers. So I might do more saturation here, which would be the equivalent of using like a 40 volume, and then a little less saturation through zone 2 and zone 3, which would be the equivalent, if you're foiling, to dropping down to like a 10 or a 20 volume. So in other words, yes, you can a little bit, but you still need to be mindful for hair health. So I'm really holding that hair up as opposed to some of the back sections. I hold the hair more down. So the more I elevate the hair, the more blend there's going to be. So by me holding it almost straight up like this, I'm achieving the same thing that you would achieve if you teased it. It's the exact same kind of blend. I just don't have to comb out the tease with a shampoo bowl. The higher you elevate, the more blend you're going to get.
More diffusion, more
It's
elevation.
such a good nugget, I feel like, because, well, I've just been in the chair when that's happened, and then I hear it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening right now? My hair is never going to be combed out.
Kelly says thank you.
You're welcome. Hopefully I answered your question. If I didn't answer it right, you can ask me in a different way. But hopefully I understood what you meant.
Get your step stool out.
I know. It's like when I
Want me
paint
to shrink?
Alexa's hair.
Yeah.
I have another client who has super long, beautiful hair like you, and I always feel like I need to bring in a ladder.
So I have a question. I don't know if anyone else this is gaining popularity, but we have the hothead wefts,
Yeah.
and they're just everyone is starting to use them in my territory. So what's the technique difference, I guess, with is there one, or do you treat it as the hair when you're painting?
So that is actually an awesome question that I'm going to refer to my friend Elise Rocks, because to be perfectly honest with you, I don't do extensions anymore.
Okay.
And so I knew the answer way back when I used to do extensions in the way that I used to do them. And so back then we always separated that out, but that would be nearly impossible to do now. So I feel like I have seen some of my fellow educators that do work with extensions like Elise still work the same process.
Okay.
But before I give you an answer that might not be accurate, I'm going to give you let me get back to you on that.
I guess, and no, it might not ever be asked. I know.
No, it's
if it
actually
came up-
something that's asked.
Okay.
It is. It's just because it's not. I don't like to answer on things that I honestly don't, because I will never bullshit you on something. So if I don't know the 100% answer,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. So no, it's a great question actually to ask, and I'm sure that there are several of you guys as stylists that either are curious about that or have had that kind of fall into play. I don't have extension clients because it's just not something I do anymore. So it's a great question to ask. And so because of that, I'm going to find the answer for you. And also I want to know because I'm sure I'll get asked that in upcoming classes because it's becoming more and more popular.
It's just really gaining popularity, I feel like.
Yeah, it
All
really
right,
is.
so part to Kelly's question, but you went to the ends over the blonde, so I'm confused. Are you using clay lightener?
Yes. So what I'm using on Steph's hair today is a clay balayage specific lightener. So it works very differently than a traditional lightener. So the way I painted Steph's hair, I could not do this with a traditional lightener without risking damage to her hair. So it's a completely different type of lightener. So I wouldn't have painted all the way down like that with the traditional lightener at the same type of consistency. The way we paint with a balayage specific lightener and a traditional lightener are very, very different. Which sunlightsbalayage.com has several links on there to their online education, and then also to they have a great YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and just search Sunlights Balayage, there's a ton of videos on it. It really goes in depth explaining the difference between the clay-based lightener and a traditional lightener, and some of the reasons why it's important to paint differently with them.
Just said, gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if this is in my head, but I feel like my eyes are already popping more with that.
Good. Subliminal. Good. That's funny. I love it. All right. So I'm going to come back over here.
I
I'm
forgot
gonna
to look, see what
work
time it
off
was.
of the same viewpoint. What'd you say, honey?
So I forgot to look, see what time it was when it started.
Oh, yeah, I did
Jared, you're so good at your job. Great camera and product demonstration. Thank you.
Isn't he a great Vanna? You probably didn't see him because he's behind you, but he grabbed the thing and went.
Oh. Oh yeah.
That's so funny.
I saw him grab something, but I did not see that.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
You got it.
So this might be a question for someone who's still in beauty school. Do you ever lose track? I mean, how do you keep track of when you're talking? You're all very talented. This is me putting on my client hat. How do you keep track of when the sectioning and the angles and what you're working? Do you ever? Is there any time that you ever get lost and like, oh, what did I do on that side? Or is it all very natural because it's hair painting that you don't really have to have a pattern exactly going? I don't know.
I love that question because that's something that's brought up in classes a lot.
Okay.
And it's also something I really struggled with in the beginning because I think a lot of stylists struggle with that period, but I think also, I hate to say older stylists, but us more traditional stylists struggled with that I think even more because if we were trained to foil, then we foiled off of patterns, and so that's how our brain works, is to foil off of patterns. And so I kept looking for like a pattern or a placement, and you know when I would watch other people paint and it was just very like fluid, and I was like, I don't get that. I need like a pattern.
Right.
You know, again, that comes down to every artist is different. So I mean, I have met over the years plenty of stylists that really need an outline of this is what I paint, this is my placement. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you need.
It's whatever makes sense in your brain.
Yeah. For me, once I finally let go of the fact that there doesn't have to be a pattern, that was so freeing because now I just paint what I feel like, what like moves me in that moment. But that's another reason why, like when we were talking about earlier, and I said, you know, like don't, like when Jared made some comment about like if Steph were to go to the next stylist and be like, well, Lacey did it this way. And one of the reasons I said don't do that is because not only is every artist different, so every artist has the right to paint it differently, but honestly, every time my client sits down in my chair, I'm probably going to paint it a little differently because that's the artistic side of balayage that I love so much. So I'm just going to kind of read the hair.
Yes, and I love the uniqueness too. I mean, I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of the things that helps keep my clients excited about their hair because a lot of my clients have come to me for years, but yet I do something a little different each time they come into me. So they don't feel like, they've had the same hair for 20 years, I mean,
Yeah, that's
obviously,
really cool.
it's not that I'm like gonna go totally like left center. Like, I don't mean that, but I'm gonna
hues of pink, which I totally want to do as really fun.
But yeah, I mean, Candy said it best with all the classes that I took with her in the beginning, which is just read the hair and paint what's need painted and leave out what doesn't need painted. And that's really hard to understand in the beginning because the way we're initially trained is very technical. But once you learn the technical side of balayage, it's best if you let go of that and just start organically painting. And that's the most beautiful work. Is when you can always tell a stylist that's been balayaging for a while when it does look very organic and fluid. If it's very like
That was another thing we were talking about earlier is like you can give all the information out there, but it's one of those until you do it many a times, like you don't know the right questions to ask yet.
Well, and I always say like anybody can walk into an art store and have the proper tools to do art, right? But what they choose to do with that art, with those tools once they leave there is up to them. So,
That's really good.
yeah, I mean, so, the way Candy paints is different from the way that I paint. The way pretty much every stylist I've ever met that balayages paints, we all paint differently. But, I mean, we all have the basic technique down, but artistically, we're going to do it differently. But that's my favorite thing about balayage. That's what I didn't like about foil was that it was just so mundane for me. I know some people love that, so kudos. But for me, I was like, highlight, low light, highlight, low light. It wasn't artistic and fun for me, so I just felt like I used to hate foil. I was good at it, like I said, because I'm a very technical-minded person, but I'm a very left brain, right brain person, so it didn't touch into that other side of my brain,
right.
So with painting, once I finally let go of, I don't have to have a pattern, is when I started loving balayage because I paint all my clients differently every time I see them. I paint what needs to be painted. If it needs painted, I paint it. If it doesn't, I don't paint it. That took a long time to work my head around, though. For
Right,
sure.
like I just imagine before I landed with Premier, I was, like I said, considering. I just really wanted to be a part of this industry, but my brain is so, technical. I think maybe I don't know where I'm going with this. I just think this is amazing.
Well, thank you. But I still think that even if there are so many stylists out there that are very technical-minded stylists and still are very successful. So just because you are primarily technical-minded doesn't mean you can't still be successful.
Open your mind to new experiences.
Because, I mean, I will tell you that although I am a very artistically minded person, I definitely lean more technical than artistic. And it was something I used to struggle with as a younger stylist, feeling like, okay, well, I was technically good at what I did, but I was never going to be able to compete with those really artistic minded people because I definitely weigh more on the technical side.
Okay.
So, thank God I didn't listen to that little voice in my head, right?
Right, right. Gotta shut that down. And everyone starts somewhere too. I guess that's another
Yes,
point.
exactly. Exactly. But that's honestly one of my favorite things about this industry is that there's so many different ways to be an amazing stylist. And there's a client out there for every stylist, no matter what your aesthetic is or what your skill set is. There's a client out there for every stylist. I mean, if I based my worth as a stylist off of, for instance, doing men's hair, I would have no clients because I suck at men's hair. So, but I found my strength. I wasn't trying to market towards men.
No, you just tap into what.
If I tried to base my clientele off of perms, I would not be in business because. So I don't market towards perms. So you have to just find your strengths and focus on that. And the great thing about this industry is you can do that. And there's always a client out there for you.
Right.
Somebody that wants big hair that doesn't move for a week is gonna hate me. But that's okay, they're not my market.
Right.
You know? But then there's another stylist out there that loves that. And so kudos to them. That's their market. And that's awesome about this industry, is that
It's incredible, honestly. I feel like it's a whirlwind every day. And what I think is really cool about this industry is that the sharing of knowledge. Like since I started, I just think that's so special in today's world is that you don't just be the best and not
I
not
love
teach.
that too. I feel like hairstylists, and I'm sure Jared would probably say this about barbers as well. We're like a sisterhood and a brotherhood, you know? And I love that so much. You've always got somebody there for you.
Yes.
To support you, which I think is so awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously, there's always those, you know, negative meanies, but they exist everywhere. But, you know, but for the most part, I think our industry is very supportive of each other, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
So do I. I just think it's really cool to be a part of. So I appreciate you having me today.
Well, thanks for letting me paint your hair.
Of course.
Thanks
I'm
for
like,
lending
oh my
me a
goodness.
canvas.
Yes. I know. Then I'm like, my hair is never going to be the same because I wear my hair so long. Like, it's forever going to be amazing. I'm definitely going to get it done again. But it's really exciting that if something happened, I couldn't get my hair done for a year. It would just be
It would
sad.
totally be fine. I'll tell you what, that's one of the things that was so awesome during quarantine was that it really helped to reinforce in my clients' minds why balayage is worth what I charge is because, you know, all the way through quarantine we were closed for 3.5 months and yet their hair still looked amazing. So it really built that worth.
Right. There
My
is so
clients,
much-
not so much.
What's that?
My clients,
Oh,
not.
Jared's clients as a barber, yeah, probably not so much.
Yeah, they had to deal with the me's of the world. I was like, I'll just try. I'll see what I'll watch a YouTube video. Yeah, no. I definitely watched 2 heads of hair during.
It's alright.
Yes, Kelly, it's 50 volume. Sorry. Do you mix clay lightener with 40 volume developer? 50 is what I showed.
You can use 40 or 50. Honestly, you can use anything, but if you use a 50 volume to mix with, then you have the range based upon your saturation to use it in 5 different ways. If I only use a 40 volume, then that's my range. If I only use a 30 volume, that's my range. So if I use a 50, then I can use it as a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So why not just go with the 50 and saturate at all these different levels?
Which
If
you
I
can go
start
back
all
to
way
the
down
beginning
there,
of the
strongest
video.
I'm ever going to be is right there. What's that?
You can go back to the beginning of the video.
Yeah. Or you can also search that video, why 50 volume
Oh yeah,
in the hair
that too.
farm with Lacey Worley. And I go in depth on all of that. Very in depth. Because yeah, I know that's a little confusing, it's very different from foil, but
Yeah, it's a little confusing to me. From what I've been learning thus far is like, okay, control. It's just a whole different ballgame.
yeah,
So
it's completely different, yeah. So since we were talking about a little bit about, you know, balayage growing out well and whatever, that's a good lead in to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So Steph brought up a situation that I'm sure a lot of you that stylists that are watching either have or have had, where you feel like, you know your skill set is on point and where it needs to be, but you feel like you can't charge more because of the area you're in or the clientele that you have. So what was it that you were saying to me?
well, I just asked my girlfriend. I was like, why don't you up your prices? I mean, you're completely booked out, right? So you're rocking and rolling. You're booked out forever, and you really can't take in any more new clients. So why wouldn't you just say, listen, here, the experience and the value I'm giving your hair, like, yeah. So I guess I don't understand why people don't raise their prices and charge clients. You know, what's the appropriate.
So let me first of all point out that Steph is not a hairstylist, she's a client. So for a client to point that out, right? Like, why aren't you charging your worth? Really think about that because you guys probably have more clients that really, know that than you realize.
Right.
But so much of that is verbiage. So, I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is the second largest city in the state of Indiana, but that's not saying a whole lot. So, Fort Wayne, Indiana is not that big. But yet, my average ticket per client is between $400 and $500. So that's very high for a small Midwestern town. And so I went through that too in the beginning, where I was like super booked, had no room to put anybody, knew my skill set and my education, but I just felt like I can't charge more because I'm going to tap out of my market. And so that's where, for me, balayage really came into play, because with balayage, it can charge so much more because the skill set is so much harder, right? But also there's so much more worth to the client, especially in the way that if you talk to them in this way and really explain this, because my clients that were getting a traditional highlight before, or a foil, they were usually coming every 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, but most of them were closer to 6 to 8 weeks. So back then, I think I was charging like
$135
or something like that. What's that?
$125 or $135.
Yeah, I think I was charging like $125, and they would come every like 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, so now for a balayage minimum, I'm gonna charge $225. That's minimum. Most of my clients are closer to $325 or $375. So obviously that's a huge jump, right? So how did I get my clients to jump from that? Especially because my clients that were foiled, they liked their foil. So it's not like I had clients, when I started balayaging, nobody really knew about balayage. At least for you guys, it's all over social media now. But back then, I mean, this was like 11, 12 years ago. Nobody had even heard of it. So how am I not only going to get my clients who are already happy with their hair to switch to something else, but also tell them now you have to pay me twice as much?
Right.
So what I did was took some classes, was really like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is amazing. So I said, I want to talk to you about this new service, balayage. I think you're going to love it because I can create so much more depth and tonality in your hair. I can make it look thicker where it's thinner. I can make it look more decreased where it's too full and thick. But even more importantly, it's going to grow out so much better. Yes, it is more expensive initially for appointment, but over the course of the year, it's probably going to cost you about half. So because I know you're going to love it so much, if you'll let me, your first appointment, I'll balayage for the same price as what we foiled before. If you love it, then your next session will cost X. If you don't love it, then the next time we do your foil again. So they're not losing anything. I didn't have anybody that wanted to foil again. Not only that, but my clients, we went through the numbers about a year later, mostly for their husbands. And I pointed out to them, okay, over the course of a year, 3 years ago when we were foiling, yes, you were only paying $125 per session, but this is what you paid me in the course of a year. Now you're paying, depending on what they're doing, usually around $325. Yes, I know that seems like a huge number, but you're only getting your hair balayaged 2 or 3 times a year. So you are paying almost half. Some cases it is half. And you love your hair. You know, so where's the worth in that? And so when stylists and I'm teaching classes will say, my clients just can't afford it. It all depends on how you look at it. Because really, it's an investment, if you look at it that way.
Absolutely.
It's going to last so much longer, so it's not only going to save them time, because they earn money, because they're not having to come in, it's all the time, you know?
And time is huge for some people.
Yeah. Like, I love my clients, and I like to think they love me too, but I'm sure they have other things to do other than sit in my chair every 6 to 8 weeks, you know? So, you know, that's a huge selling point that you really have to discuss with your clients. And again, that was really driven home during quarantine, because we were closed for 3 months, so my clients were 3 months overdue, and their hair still looks amazing. So, if they had been a foil, they would have been so happy with me. So, they would have been like, can't you break the law and be a human?
Yes, they would have been calling, texting, all that went on.
Yeah.
Tiffany says, I'm learning so much for this video because I've been doing hair for a long time. Techniques have changed so much. I'm really trying to master balayage techniques. Sometimes I feel so lost.
Well, if you are not already, definitely join the Hair Forum with Lacey Worley here on Facebook, because not only do I share a ton of free videos there, but we have so many amazing educators there that not only share a lot of free education for you guys to help you out, but you can post and ask any question. It's a safe place for you to feel like you can ask any question. So instead of really feeling frustrated and like you're struggling, join a community of stylists, and obviously mine is one of them. Olaplex Users is another one of them. There's so many awesome ones out there that's willing to help you through that. So through the Hair Forum with Lacey Worley, you can search the hashtag once you're within that forum. Hashtag Lacey tutorial or hashtag live tutorial. And there's literally hundreds of free education from educators all over the world. that are willing to help you out with that and help you to be re-inspired.
So I asked, being true that balayage has longevity, as your clients come in for trims between balayage appointments, are you glossing them at that time?
A lot of times, yeah. Not always. It's just kind of one of those things that as needed. So a lot of times, yes. And sometimes, honestly, it's just to create more of a boutique service for my clientele. It's not always that they really need it. It's just a little something extra that I add because of what I charge. So I charge $75 for a haircut, which in my area, I think it's probably closer to average is what, like 30, 35 here in Fort Wayne. And so I try to build worth into everything I do here at the salon. So it's all about the experience. It's about obviously giving them a great haircut, but it's also little extra things like that. It really doesn't take me long to add a gloss to a service. So a lot of times I will, yeah. Now I'm not talking about like a root stretch or a color melt. I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about a quick gloss with shampoo bowl. So yes, a lot of times when they come in for a haircut, I will do a color gloss with the shampoo bowl when they come in between. It just really makes their highlight kind of pop again and builds worth for them in between services. And it also keeps them coming to me for haircuts because I do that.
This is totally firing me up, this conversation right now, because I feel like since I started, I'm so passionate about clients only know what they know, and me putting my client hat on is like, if I would have known that I could sneak away for like a pamper of an hour service, so like the rewind that we've been talking about, or if I knew split end correction existed, I would have been getting them for the last 10 years. So
exactly.
Brazilian is really, I don't know, my passion lies in, you know, really just, you charge my worth, number one, but number two, your clients, you don't know, they could come see you every 4 weeks. I don't like to blow out my own hair.
Yeah,
if there was
exactly.
these extra services that I could know about, I would definitely have been doing them.
Absolutely. One of the things that stylists will sometimes say to me is, well, now that your clients are only coming into you once or twice a year, doesn't that make you lose money? And I'm like, no, because they're still in the salon for other things, you know?
Yes.
I mean, I'm still taking care of the health of their hair in other ways. I'm still glossing their hair, I'm still cutting their hair. They're building a relationship with me, which is really important. And I try to make sure that every single time they walk into my salon, it's more of a boutique experience, not just haircut, not just, you know, I try not to be basic, I guess.
Yes, and I feel like that's so vital to just success, is that if you're just offering the same services that everyone else is in your block, and yes, you're incredibly talented, but when it comes to those extra services, if they're doing the same right, like you have that relationship and they're never going to leave.
Absolutely.
Because you're introducing them to that instead of the next person, or they're seeing it somewhere else.
And let me tell you guys a quick tip on that. So Steph's very correct in that your clients only know what they know. So if they don't know about a service, then they may not know to ask for it. So a lot of times when I have brought on extra services, whether it's, you know, I'm going to bring on the rewind service from Brazilian Blowout, but also our standalone Olaplex treatments, or Brazilian blowouts that I do in the salon, or, you know, just whatever, i.e. whatever. You know, not all of us are natural salespeople, and not all of us are comfortable doing that. And I'm one of those people that's not super comfortable about it, but my client won't know to ask about it unless they know about it, right? So a lot of times when I bring on a new service, I will set those products just on my station there. So when I brought on the split end mend, for instance, I just sat it there. And so my clients know that anytime, now right now obviously we have all our sanitation stuff there, but normally that corner of my station is for whatever product or service I'm featuring that month. And every time they come in, it's usually something different. And it's a talking point. One, it's something for us to talk about while they're sitting here, but two, it's a way for them to ask me instead of me feeling like I'm selling them something. So if you want to really educate your clients on either a new product you have or a new service that you offer that maybe they don't even know you have, just set it there. Because they'll ask you, and be like, oh, what's that? And that's an easy way for you to be like, well, that's, you know, whatever.
And people love to shop. They don't like to be sold to. So if they feel like they're shopping with you, that's just human nature. That's how people like to operate.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I love that you do that. I think that's such a great tip that might be overlooked or just not ever thought of.
Well, the first salon that I worked at, our owner was definitely like sell. And it made me so uncomfortable, and I was so not good at it. So then I just completely shied away from it because it was really uncomfortable. It wasn't until I left that salon and then worked with another mentor who actually pointed that out to me and was like, no, make it a conversation on sales experience. So, you know, make your client ask you, but they're not going to know to ask you if you don't like present it to them. So instead of you feeling like you're selling it to, just sit there.
Right, and you're the expert too. Like, I want to know what I can do at home to make this looking amazing for until my next appointment. Like, that is something I'm invited. Like, you might not know, or your clients might be quiet. I'm just not a quiet person. But
yeah, but even sometimes the quiet people, if you have something sitting out there, they'll go, oh, what is that?
Oh, of course, that's the best way. It just, yes, I love that. So much goodness.
Thanks. I've been doing it a while. A little while.
So when they say just say it over and over and over again until it becomes natural, kind of thing. Also,
Say what over and over again? What do you
just
mean?
like have a spiel.
A spiel?
Not necessarily a spiel, but you say it enough that it becomes natural to you.
I'm not what?
All right, I think that this is what. So for me,
Sorry, babe.
this is all new to me, right? So guess what I do? I listen to, like, Kevin Murphy has a podcast. Someone in Australia has a podcast, and they're not even just product podcasts. It's just really helped me dive in. And I listen to hairstyles podcasts,
Yes,
and
yeah.
whatever you hear and what you're comfortable with, then it just happens naturally.
Yes.
Is that what
So
you're saying?
yeah, like
Yeah. Thanks for the
Gino
translation.
Sampora. Sorry, this is me and Lacey all day, all the time, trying to get together.
Translation, please.
We need a mediator at all times.
Hey, I'm happy to come back.
So yeah, Gino Sampora. When we used to watch his videos, it was one of those, like, he had a thing that he said when he was trying to get a new client or something like that. Hey, my name is Jared. I'm a new stylist in town. I would love to do your hair sometime. You know, you have your spiel. You say it over and over again until it becomes natural. That you don't feel uncomfortable as saying it, I guess.
Yeah, and take it from the experts. So this is what I've done personally, is that I listen to, so Lacey's verbiage, you can rewatch the video. You can have it playing in your car. I mean, you can have it on when you're cleaning. This is just how I really try to dive in and just learn from the educators and the experts.
Yeah.
Love the conversation between you guys. Does clay lightener have bleach in it?
So clay lightener is still a lightener, just like traditional lightener. The biggest difference is the catalyst with it, and how it binds and then binds to the hair, lives on the hair. So a traditional lightener is more of a silica-based type of a product, which is gonna kind of slip and slide on the hair a little bit more, so that you can really work the lightener into the hair. Like, say if you're working with a foil or whatever. And so then it's not going to kind of crust. It's going to stay moist and active because there's nothing to make it dry out and crust. A clay-based or balayage lightener has a clay in it, which is a little different from a silica or sand kind of a base for a lot of reasons. But one, that clay is going to, like as we paint it, is going to dome. And that clay, because it's powder, right? If you think of like mud out in the hot sun, it's going to dry from the outside in. So, with a traditional lightener, your incubation would be the foil. With clay, the clay is your incubation. It becomes like your foil. So, it works from the outside in, incubation-wise. Let me draw this for you a little bit. I'm more of a visual.
And she also wants to know, does it stop lifting after many minutes? Which I'm sure
Yeah.
you will mention.
Yeah.
But
So let's say we paint on a 50 volume dome. Okay, so this is the hair. And this is the lightener, right? So when I first paint this on, all this interior here is active and moist. So this is working at a 50 volume. Now stay with me here for a second. So as it dries, this outer shell dries out, the clay. So now I'm at like a 40 volume. Right here. And it's going to keep continuing to do that. So at another about 5 minutes, now that shell is like this. To where eventually this whole thing dries up. And so even though that lightener is still sitting on the hair,
I hope that's not drawn through the walls.
Active. What?
I just hope that's not drawing through the wall.
So if you had a 50 volume in a foil, it's still going to be active because that foil kept it moist and incubated. If you have a clay base, which is self-incubating, at 30 minutes, it's going to be almost completely dried out. It's no longer working. At 40 minutes, it's completely dried out. So as long as I mix her lightener properly and apply it properly, I can leave that on her hair for 2 hours. It's not going to matter because it will dry out. Once it dries out, it stops working. That's very different than with a traditional lightener. A traditional lightener doesn't have that clay to make it dry like that.
And Grace wants to know, what are you using to put the lightener on your paddle, and where do you get it?
That's called a Sprush. So Sprush is its own company. I wish supply houses carried them. They don't. Steph, go back to Premier and tell them to carry it.
Absolutely. I need to take notes. Where's my...
Tell them I will send all of my students there because I get asked that all the time. It's an independent company. It's just called the Sprush. So like spatula brush, it's called a Sprush. I have yet to find a distributor that carries it. You just have to, you can get them on Amazon, which I hate to tell a beauty professional that, but because the supply houses don't carry them.
I'm on it.
If you look really close, I don't know if you guys will be able to see that it says the Sprush on there. They have a website, but unfortunately they're not carried by distributors. I wish they were, but they're not.
I'm at 10%. I gotta put a charge on.
Listen, Premier is always all about the latest industry trends and just staying on point. Since I've been here, I really feel that, so I will absolutely bring that back.
That would be awesome.
And we're based out of, for anyone who's joining, we're based out of Chicago, so we service Illinois. Here in Fort Wayne is my specific territory, but if you're not here, I can connect you, and then also Michigan and Ohio.
So in the tri-state area.
Yeah. When we come back with stuff after she's done processing, we are going to use predominantly Kevin Murphy products to style out her hair. The reason for that is because I am very interested in that product line. I'm not super familiar with it. Kevin Murphy had a rep come out and speak with me several years ago. And I loved the product, but at that time it was, you had to carry just Kevin Murphy. You couldn't have anything else. And I was like, well, it's not going to work for me. But Kevin Murphy has changed, and now I can still carry my Olaplex and Moroccan oil and some other products that I really love. So I'm very interested in trying out some of their products. So hopefully Steph is going to give us some information on that product line while we're using them. I won't be able to give you that information because I'll be trying it as well. And for any of you guys that are currently using Kevin Murphy, I would love it if you would reach out to me and give me your opinion on it, because I am, like I said, really considering bringing it on in the salon. So I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on it if you use it.
This is like sales rep true trust in a product that they gotta let you use it on their hair while they're... I'm gonna hold you down in the chair.
Yeah, full transparency. Like we've been with Premier for a few months, but I was using my mom, and from little northern Michigan, Cadillac, shout it out. My mom introduced me to the products, so I had been loving them for a long time, just didn't know about the full range, so since then I've been experimenting with some new products and loving the full range. So I'm really excited for you to try it out and give me your feedback.
Said they are amazing.
If any of you guys use Kevin Murphy's color line, I would also love to know your thoughts on that as well.
I bought a Sprush years ago at the hair show and always use them.
Yeah, I have probably 30. No, more, because I take them with me when I teach. Yeah, more. But I would love to be able to refer my students to a supply house for them in the future. Because that's the only thing I use to load my paddle. I get asked about them all the time, but nobody carries them.
Why do you use Sunlights over any other clay lightener?
Relationships are key to me and are so important. Obviously, I think Sunlights is an amazing product line, and in the beginning when Sunlights first came out, it was the only, and it's amazing. Obviously now there's a lot of competitors out there because, Balayage and everybody said it was a trend. Now obviously everybody's realizing it's not. So why did I start using Sunlights? Because it was amazing. Why have I stayed with Sunlights? Because it's amazing, but also relationships are so important to me. I'll never leave Sunlights. Sunlights is an amazing product line that is run by an amazing family. And to me, that is so important. I want to be supported back from the companies that I support, and Sunlights does that. I don't want to be just looked at as another account. And because Sunlights is designed, manufactured, shipped
All by
those things.
Jameson.
all by a mother and a son. That is really important to me. So relationships are key.
I'm getting goosebumps right now.
And I love that they don't treat us like that. You know, like think about some of the lines that some of us senior stylists have used over the years that not only didn't know that we exist, but never really tried to support us, right? We've all been there. That really stinks. But Sunlight's definitely sees you and will support you in any way they can. And that's huge. So not only do they have an amazing lightener, but that's an amazing company.
I like Bodybuilder for roots, but what should I use through the rest of the hair for that length and blowout?
From Kevin Murphy?
I'm guessing yes.
Yeah.
So as far as the styler goes, heat protectant, can you say that again? Sorry.
I like Bodybuilder for roots,
That's
but
what I
what
thought.
should I use through the rest of the hair for the length and blowout? So yeah, probably
Like,
hair
so what would
protectant.
you use? For
So
your
it's
styling?
they are Young Again oil is the best serum and like I said, I'm not a stylist, but I would put that serum on my hair, that Ever Smooth right there when your hair, I don't know if you're using that right now along with your bodybuilder, but put that on while your hair is still damp and it's heat activated. So taming frizz every time you run it, something hot tool over it, it performs even better. So it gives you more shine, more smooth. And then I have bedroom hair here, but their stylers, I feel like they're probably known for, I don't know, they're known for all their products. But I have bedroom hair here today. They also have Do-Over is super popular because if there's, your clients are saying like what's one product, Do-Over is kind of a 3-in-1. It's their dry shampoo, dry texture. They have this product called Powder Puff, and you guys, I don't have the full product. I just grabbed a couple off that.
I didn't really warn her. I literally asked her last night.
Last night that I was like, oh my goodness.
I literally messaged her last night. Was like, oh, by the way, I've been meaning to message you and ask you this, but could you please bring me some Kevin Murphy to play with?
Yes, and like I said, Kevin Murphy was my first love, so I'm definitely trying to branch out and use, other products from Premier. So this is what I'm using right now, still from Kevin. So yeah, there's a few, and I can answer specifically with more details on your hair. I'm not a stylist, but I'm a Kevin Murphy lover, so I can connect with you after this.
I tagged stuff in this video, so I'm sure she can go back through and
Yes, you can,
that.
and you can absolutely send me a personal message too. I can share mine.
What would beef up the hair? Sounds like
Beef up-
Bodybuilder.
Yeah, so I think she said she's currently using Bodybuilder, so it would be right here it would be bedroom hair, or Do-Over is the product or Powder Puff. So Powder Puff is this really cool, if you look, I don't know if you have seen the full product range, but you tap on, and it looks like a traditional powder that you put through your roots, to get that volume up here, but similar to what Bodybuilder would do for you. But you can actually carry that through your entire length of your hair. Do-Over that I'm talking about has that powder puff in it. It has the hairspray and the dry shampoo. So it's a 3-in-1. It's an incredible product. And then will show you bedroom hair today.
Okay.
That's
Young
amazing.
Again oil is amazing,
Yes.
and I love bedroom hair.
nice. Well, I am so excited to try some of these products.
Oh yeah, and that's their newest launch is the Scalp Spa. If anyone wants to check that out. So the Scalp Scrub is made with perlite. It's a volcanic stone and it's round. So traditional scalp scrubs, what they use for exfoliating, a lot of product has edges on it, so it's actually not phenomenal for your scalp. So that is a round pearl stone. So really, and I had scalp issues.
Yeah.
I had, just a lot that
It was
addressed
at 10%.
as well.
I don't know how much that was.
Okie dokes, guys. So I'm going to let her process for about probably 20 minutes, and then I'll check on her. I will not, if you guys want me to come back while I shampoo her, I can, but I'm sure you don't need to watch me shampoo her hair. So I'm happy to tell you what I ended up using afterwards. But then we will come back to show you reveal and everything that we use to get there in that process, whether it's the shampoos, conditioners, glaze, gloss, all those things. So we will share that with you. Please feel free to continue to ask as many questions as you want, because we will go back through afterwards, sometime tonight. I'll go through and look at every single comment and make sure I answer it. And then also you can connect with Stephanie here if you have any interest in some of the product lines that she carries through Premier. Or also you can go to Instagram at Steph, STEPH _ Premier Beauty, right? Yeah, Premier Beauty. Steph _ Premier Beauty on Instagram, and you can reach out to her that way as well. So, thanks, Shelly. Thanks. I like my hair too. It took me a minute to get used to, if I'm being honest, but I love it now. It's very liberating to not have to spend 30 minutes doing my hair. So anyways, I will connect back with you guys in a little while for after. I'm going to give her a break to be able to breathe, and then I am going to take a break as well. So I'll take my mask off, breathe. I'm going to go walk outside. All right, so I will talk to you guys in probably about 45 minutes. So see you soon. Bye.